have some good news to report from the Middle East. I just spoke with the Prime Minister of Israel and Lebanon. I'm pleased to announce that their governments have accepted the United States proposal to end the devastating conflict between Israel and Hezbollah. I want to thank President Macron of France for his partnership in reaching this moment. For nearly 14 months, a deadly conflict raged across the border that separates Israel and Lebanon. A conflict that began the day after the October 7 attack by Hamas on Israel. Hours later, at 2 a.m. in the morning, Hezbollah and other terrorist organizations backed by Iran attacked Israel in support of Hamas. Let's be clear, Israel did not launch this war. The Lebanese people did not seek that war either, nor did the United States. Effective at 4 a.m. tomorrow local time, the fighting across the Lebanese-Israeli border will end. Will end. This is designed to be a...
Fox News Digital has exclusively learned that nearly a dozen of President-elect Donald Trump's cabinet nominees and other appointees tapped for the incoming administration were targeted with, quote, violent, un-American threats to their lives and those who live with them. These threats prompted a swift law enforcement response. White House right now live with the details. Peter.
Emily, this is a potential national security problem, so we have reached out to the National Security Council at the White House to find out what they are tracking. We will bring you their answer once we have one. We have also been in touch with some officials down with the transition team at Mar-a-Lago. They are not willing to go any further at this time than this statement. We made a graphic so you can follow along. Last night and this morning, several of President Trump's cabinet nominees and administration appointees were targeted in violent, un-American threats to their lives and those who live with them. These attacks ranged from bomb threats to swatting. In response, law enforcement and other authorities acted quickly to ensure the safety of those who were targeted. President Trump and the entire transition team are grateful for their swift action. And just as we were coming to air, we learned who at least one of these Trump appointees, or rather Trump nominees, who received one of these threats last night. It was Elise Stefanik, who President Trump wants confirmed by the Senate to be the ambassador to the United Nations. She says, in part, in a statement this morning, her office says, this morning, Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, her husband, and their 3-year-old son were driving home to Saratoga County from Washington for Thanksgiving when they were informed of a bomb threat to their residence. She goes on to describe a pretty robust response. And we're also told that this is Fox News Digital, that the director of the CIA nominee, John Ratcliffe, and Pete Hegseth, the DOD nominee, were among those targeted too. Keep in mind, these are all private citizens right now who are up for big jobs in the future. And once somebody takes over the Defense Department, say, they would have Pentagon police. Once somebody takes over the CIA, they would have CIA police. But right now, they are private citizens living in their homes preparing for confirmation hearings. So they don't have security details per se to deal with something like a swatting incident where the police show up because of an erroneous, with guns drawn potentially because of an erroneous tip that there is some kind of violent action happening. So we will bring you more names as we have them, as well as the White House response as we have it. President Biden is vacationing in Nantucket at the moment. We don't know if he has been briefed yet.
More on Trump's vow to raise tariffs on Mexico, Canada, and China. Selena?
Hey, Kana, America's top 3 trading partners are already responding to Donald Trump's latest tariff threat. The Mexican president is signaling that she's prepared to retaliate with tariffs of their own if Donald Trump moves forward with his plan. The Mexican leader also warning that tariffs would increase inflation and damage both economies. Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau spoke with Donald Trump last night and today is saying that he doesn't believe anyone wants a war with the United States. Other countries, though, have been trying to Trump-proof their economies for the last 4 years. This isn't the first time that they've seen this playbook play out, as Donald Trump has in the past used tariffs as a negotiating tool. Beijing, I've been told by experts, has been focused on diversifying and shifting their exports so they're not as reliant on the U.S. as a key trading partner. But if these tariffs did go through, this would have a sweeping effect that would touch on nearly every aspect of the U.S. economy. This could dramatically increase prices on everything from cars, electronics, toys, clothes, and oil. In fact, some economists estimate that if Donald Trump makes good on his campaign promise to increase tariffs, that it could raise the costs for the average U.S. household by more than $2,600 a year. Donald Trump says that tariffs are paid by foreign countries, but that's just not the case. What happens is that U.S. companies pay that higher tariff, that higher cost for these inputs, and then they largely pass those costs on to the American consumer. That is what we saw during the Trump administration, his first administration. That is the impact we saw from the tariffs that he put on China. And already several major U.S. companies are saying that if Trump goes forward with his tariff plan, they're going to have to increase prices. This includes Best Buy, Lowe's, and Walmart.
If you voted for Trump because you thought he was going to bring grocery prices down, I have some very bad news for you.
Donald Trump wants to hit Canada and China and Mexico in their wallets, which means tariffs. The president-elect on Truth Social, of course, promising to penalize both neighbors to the north and to the south with a 25% tariff on all products entering the U.S.
A lot of our produce comes from Mexico. 2/3 of the tomatoes that Americans purchase are from Mexico. 90% of the avocados that they purchase are from Mexico, just to mention 2 examples. So that guac is definitely going to cost extra. If you voted for Trump because you thought he was going to bring down the cost of housing, a lot of our lumber, cement, other materials comes from Canada, which means that construction costs are going to go up. Not to mention all of the ways he's going to roil the U.S. auto industry, because a lot of autos cross borders in North America multiple times before they're ultimately finished and sold to consumers. Not to mention the fact that a lot of U.S. manufacturers purchase inputs, intermediate goods like metals and cement and other things from Canada, from Mexico, and not to mention even the retaliation that we should expect. All of which is going to be very bad for consumers, not to mention, again, many of the U.S. workers that Trump allegedly wants to help.
What happens if the Trump administration wants to crack down on people here illegally, but certain cities don't want to allow it? What happens? What can a city like Denver do legally if they don't want to assist in this kind of effort?
Probably not as much as the mayor thinks, Dan. We saw a lot of this 4 years ago during the first Trump administration, and a lot of the mayors of the more progressive cities will come out and make bold statements about how they're going to restrict immigration enforcement in their cities. They cannot stop federal agents from enforcing federal law in the city. So that means if ICE wants to do an area sweep or they go door to door in neighborhoods, generally speaking, because of the supremacy clause, the mayor can't stop them. But where the mayors can be very impactful is in access to the jails. 95% of ICE's interior arrests currently all come from prisons and jails, including state prisons and jails. They can also, and they rely on access to those jails to get the immigrants there, where they're already kind of like a captured, they're literally captured sitting right there. But they also rely on information. ICE relies heavily on information from the criminal justice system. Mayors can restrict that. So they can do some, serious damage to ICE's ability to execute this mass deportation plan, but probably not as much as some of the political rhetoric suggests.
This is not okay. I just spent $74, and what I got is ridiculous. This is what's going on in Canada. I'm pretty sure it's happening everywhere else. How the hell are people living? 2 packs of ground beef, 2 packs of noodles, naan bread, brick of cheese, small, look at the size of this thing. My hand is bigger than it. 2 apples, tomatoes, 2 cans of sauce, hazelnut creamer, pickles, Valentinas, aloe water, and 2 packs of these yogurt drinks for my kiddo. $74. And I'm a single dad, and luckily I have a good job. I can afford this. How the hell are people affording that when they make a fraction of what I do? This is absolutely ridiculous.
Overnight at Boston Logan International Airport, a tug vehicle pulling an empty JetBlue plane struck a Cape airplane, and 2 pilots for that Cape airplane were taken to the hospital. Just hours earlier, at the same airport, an American Airlines plane clipped the wings of a Frontier jet while that plane was parked at the gate.
It sounded like something fell from below.
Thankfully, no injuries were reported. An investigation now underway. And with the most planes in the sky today, this morning a warning about staffing shortages in air traffic control. Travelers already experiencing delays.
I've been here all day. It's been quite frustrating.
The FAA saying it may have to slow air traffic in the Northeast because of that shortage of air traffic controllers.
There's been a lot of issues with the air traffic control up in Newark, so I'm hoping that I get to make it home soon.
This as more than 50,000 flights take to the air today, the most this Thanksgiving travel period. The crush of travelers, packing airports from Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson to Chicago's O'Hare. In San Francisco, some flyers experiencing 2-hour delays because of weather with more wind and rain in the forecast.
It's not only the reduced visibility that comes from the rain, it's also the fact that the winds are blowing in a different direction than they normally do.
Now, despite some of those delays, American Airlines tells me that 90% of their flights arrived on time yesterday. So that's some good news there. But listen, tomorrow will also be very, very busy. So if you're flying, try to get out as early as you can, Michael.
All right, Gio, thank you so much for that. I'm going to turn now to the road. They're expected to be packed with holiday travelers. Our Stephanie Ramos is at the George Washington Bridge in Fort Lee, New Jersey for us. Good morning, Stephanie.
Michael, good morning. The Thanksgiving travel rush is here, and it is shaping up to be one of the busiest on record. Take a look at traffic behind me on the George Washington Bridge. It is busy and already building up with millions of Americans expected to hit the road. Let's take a look at these numbers. AAA projects 71.7 million Americans will travel by car over Thanksgiving. That's 1.3 million more than last year and even higher than pre-pandemic numbers in 2019. Expect the worst congestion this afternoon and tomorrow afternoon, so plan accordingly. For those of you on the East Coast, peak congestion hits this afternoon in major cities like Washington, D.C., New York, and Boston. For lighter traffic, leave on Thanksgiving morning if you can and head home early Sunday morning. Let's talk about gas prices. They're dropping. AAA says the national average could fall below $3 a gallon for the first time since 2021, and that's a big drop from last year's average. That was at $3.26. And if you're near a Sheetz gas station, they're offering a Thanksgiving treat, 40 cents off per gallon of unleaded 88. Wherever you are, plan ahead, and of course, stay safe.
Yeah,
Robin.
we want. Okay, Stephanie, thanks so much. And we know rain and snow moving across the country could impact holiday travel. Ginger, you got that forecast for us?
Yeah, and today's rain in the Northeast, I wouldn't usually even show you because it's just kind of nuisance, but I have been flying a lot lately, and that air traffic controller issue is going to be compounded even with a drop of rain. I can tell you, Newark, LaGuardia, JFK. And today we're going to see those airports, especially Washington, D.C. or New York or Philadelphia, early in the day have some issues with rain, and then it will pull away as we go through the day. Boston could see it throughout the afternoon. Then it's that second storm. This one's more potent, and that's where we're going to see the feet, and already have had feet of snow in the Sierra Nevada through the Rockies. As you drive on Wednesday, it's looking pretty good across much of the nation, except I-70, a little rain there, back into Denver where the snow's still flying. And then though, Thursday itself, it is heavy rain for the mid-Atlantic, like Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, New York City, and Boston. It's snow away from the coast into the Poconos and Catskills. You see the two forecasts for the Philadelphia Parade and the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. Michael, we just have to be grateful that we got rain because of the drought.
We're going to get more.
But it's going to be rainy and cool on Thanksgiving.
The president of Mexico could help us with buses because there are many children in various conditions, sick people, elderly. So we want to be heard. We don't want to stay here, but we want to enter before Donald Trump takes office again.
What we want is to reach the border and let God's will be done for us to be received. We want to be on the other side before the new president of the United States takes office, as he seems quite harsh on immigrants.
Now, President-elect Trump has pledged to end that asylum system, the CBP-1 app, which has allowed some migrants to enter legally through a port of entry.
We're going to have to seal up those borders, and we're going to have to let people come into our country. We want people to come back in, but we have to let them come back in, but they have to come in legally.